Invincible Season 2, Episode 6. We are down to 2 episodes left in this season. And this 6th episode, it starts off fantastic. So if this is your first time watching one of my videos, warning, spoilers, I'm going to get right into it. So we start off where we left off the last episode, with King Lizard holding a gun to the back of Rexplode's head. And Rex is just like, just do it, prick. And you might think that he might somehow get away and dodge the bullet or something, but nope. King Lizard pulls that trigger and bam, right through his head. Rex stumbles a little bit and then he falls down and he's seemingly dead. And from there we move over back to the Guardians of the Globe, the ones who went out to space, and Adam Eve and Invincible, who are trying to stop the Squidoids. I'm going to say their name wrong all through this episode now, video. So the Sequids, there we go, correctly, are overwhelming them, but Rex is building this little machine to help disable them. So the Guardians are trying to protect them, but like I said, they're getting overwhelmed. And Rex is able to complete the device, which Immortal gets, and he's going to take it, but Invincible takes it from him, which makes the Immortal mad. But Invincible says, I'm stronger and I'm faster, let me do it. So the Immortal agrees. And they're able to fight their way through this big wave of Sequids. And Invincible presses the button and they free the astronaut who's possessed and controlling all the Sequids because they're hive mind. And they think the day is saved, but they turn around and you see that Robot and Eve are possessed by the Squidoids. The Sequids. See, I'm going to say Squidoids. Anyway, Invincible's like, well, maybe this machine has a little bit more juice. So Eve and Robot, possessed by the Sequids, start running off. But Immortal and Invincible are able to grab them and bring them together. And they press the button and freeing them. So luckily they're able to save the day. They grab the astronaut, Russ Livingston, and then they go to escape. And they're intercepted by the Martians, who are just like, thank you for saving us, but we can't let you leave with Shakesmith. He's the one why we're all in this situation. And Invincible's like, okay, well, what are you guys going to do with him? Kill him? And they're like, yeah, that's what we're going to do. And Invincible's like, okay. And then this is a callback to the first season, kind of a joke, where the same thing happened on Mars, where Mark was just like, okay. And then the next scene is him and the astronauts just taking off. Same thing here. He says okay, and then we skip over to the Guardians and the spaceship taking off. And we get this cool scene of Mark just breaking through all these Martian spaceships just super easily, almost like it's paper to him, which is really fantastic. And, he goes back to their spaceship, and Eve's like, that's so amazing. She gives him a hug. They're, like, really pushing the Eve and Invincible relationship, which I am all for. So we cut back, and if I'm skipping around, you just gonna have to bear with me. There's a lot in this episode. We go back to King Lizard, who's talking on the phone, to whoever who he's threatening someone. He's like, I've killed all the Guardians. This place is a mess. You'll never be able to clean it up. He wants his demands to be met. And then he hears some sound, and he looks over at Rex, who gets up, and he's just completely messed up. And he's kind of like in shock. It's like, just, how are you still alive? Which we kind of all are. And Rex is just like super pissed off. And he just starts beating the hell out of King Lizard, with his fist and, the bone from his missing hand, which is, very crazy. You got blood splurting out of the hole in his freaking head. But he practically kills King Lizard. I don't think he does, but he beats the living hell out of him. And then these soldiers walk in, and they're like, are you okay? And Rex just turns around, and he's just, of course, like, he has a bullet through his brain, so he's not functioning very well. He's like, what do you mean, am I okay? I'm perfectly fine. It's like kind of like a hilarious moment. And he ends up passing out and falling on the ground, and they call a medic for him. And then we also go over to the body of the big buff Lizard League guy, Komodo, maybe is his name. I never remember their names. And then we see that Shrinking Ray is alive. She comes out of the body and she looks badly hurt and injured, which is a big surprise, because if you've read the comics, she dies in this fight in the comics, or it's a he in the comics, but they die in the comics, and that's it for that character. So it was a very big surprise that she survived. So, as comic people are just like, whoa, what's going on? How is she still alive? And, my theory is that in the comic books, Robert Kirkman had a bunch of other series that were connected to Invincible. You had Tech Jacket, Astounding Wolfman, Invincible Universe slash Guardians of the Globe, and a few others like Brit and stuff like that. Those ones aren't. These characters probably aren't going to show up in Invincible due to licensing issues. I think Amazon would have to pay to license those books and stories and those characters so they can show up in Invincible, and they probably just don't want to spend that money. That's what I assume, at least. So it kind of makes sense that they save Shrinking Ray because she's able to fill in possibly some of these spots later on as the show goes on. And again, it's just a theory. Possibly we'll see, or it could have just been a thing to throw off comic book fans to be like, oh, you think this person's gonna die? You're wrong. So maybe we'll see a different character die in the series, which will impact this differently. It's going to be interesting to see. So anyway, we're back on Earth, and we have a lot of things that happen. Debbie is trying to get a babysitter for Oliver, which he's finally named this episode. She goes through a lot of interviewees, and she finds a potential candidate. Rick is back. He was in the first season. He got turned into a Reaniman, or just about turned into one. So they completely, saved him, I guess. He's probably a robot underneath and human. And there's this cool moment with him and, what's his name? I am just bad with names. Anyway, Donald, who was turned into a cyborg or a robot, android, whatever you want to call it, the last season, who comments on Rick. He's like, he might seem like he's fine, but he's been through a lot of trauma having his body reformed, and he might not be sure of who he is. And obviously he's kind of talking about himself and Rick because they went through similar things. So it'll be interesting if they pick this up later. But William's really excited to have Rick back, and he shows him around the college, and they have this memorial for all the people that were killed or maimed because of DA Sinclair, and we find out that Rick was the only one who survived. And then the big drama of this episode is if Mark and Amber are going to break up. There's a lot of scenes throughout the show where Mark and Amber, they clearly love each other, but they're very awkward around each other, and they kind of, they want to be together, and they might not want to make it work, but you can tell that it's probably not going to. The relationship is right there. It's about to fucking break and be over with, which is kind of sad. I really like Amber in the show. She was fine in the comics. I didn't really super love her, but I think she's a little bit better in the show. But, if they break up, obviously they're trying to set up the Eve and Invincible love shipping, which I'm all for. And the other big things happen in the show is Alan and the books of Omni-Man. So Mark gets the books. He finds out that his dad wrote travel books, or wrote fiction books on top of travel books. In the fiction books, he reads a bunch of stories about space racers and the Ragnars, and he just kind of thinks to himself, it's like, maybe these are real things that can hurt the Viltrumites. So Alan shows up to Earth, and he's intercepted by the Immortal, who is grieving over Duplicate's death, which, oh man, I forgot to mention, they had a cool kind of scene where the Guardians get back to Earth, and, they find out that, Rex and Shrinking Ray were badly injured and Kate died. It's this very sad, emotional moment, and then we get the funeral of Kate, where we find out that Immortal really, really cared about Kate, and it's just really hurting him. So anyway, he goes into space to intercept Alan because he thinks it's Omni-Man, and, Alan's just like, hey, he's trying not to fight Immortal, but Immortal is just not listening again because he's grieving so badly. So he keeps trying to fight Alan until Invincible shows up and stops him. And Immortal is just kind of sad and kind of takes off. Invincible explains the situation to Alan and everything. So then Alan and Invincible talk, and he's like, you're the second Viltrumite to rebel against the Viltrumite Empire. You need to come back with me so we can, we use you in this war and hopefully turn the tide. But Mark's just like, no, I just got back from space twice. Um, I'm not gonna leave my mom with my little brother. You know, Amber and me are just, we're having issues. There's no way I can go right now. And Alan's just like, okay, you know, I understand. You know, no big deal. Um, but Mark's just like, well, let me talk to you about these books because I have an idea about them. And he explains that, you know, he's like, my dad wrote these, and it talks about a lot of things that I think are things that hurt Viltrumites. And Alan agrees because he recognizes Space Racer. He's just like, he's this legendary being that no one thinks is real, so maybe it's a possibility. So he scans the books, and he's about to leave, and Mark's just like, you know, I might not go with you, but when you actually need me in battle, in the war, come call me, and I'll go with you. And this is, you know, if you're a comic book fan, setting up little crumbs for the Viltrumite War that is going to come later, and it's going to be amazing. So the episode ends with the astronaut, I forget his name, Russ Livingston, cleaning up his apartment. He's mad at Shapesmith for, you know, making a mess and everything. And he ends up throwing up because he sees some bad Chinese food that's rotted and moldy or whatever. And he ends up throwing up a sequid, and it attaches to him. So, you know, cliffhanger, he's going to be back. But the show actually ends with Angstrom Levy finally, you know, he gets this nice suit, and he explains to the tailor that, you know, oh, I'm going to go see a friend, and I want to look my best or whatever. So he goes through a bunch of portals, and he ends up in New York, and he's just like, it's good to be home. So this is where the episode ends. Excuse me. And like I said, we're 2 episodes left in the season. So, you know, there's a few things that have to happen, but that final episode is obviously going to be Angstrom Levy attacking Invincible. So we're probably going to see a little bit more of him tomorrow or in the next episode, which is going to be fantastic. Overall, great episode. A lot of relationship drama and everything, but it was cool seeing the crumbs and everything set up for future episodes. And the stuff with Rexplode was just amazing. Very sad episode tone-wise because, you know, obviously a lot of depth and the injured characters and the relationships falling apart and everything like that. But it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. You know, one of the things about superhero comics that works is the relationships. You know, action is fantastic, but if we don't care about the characters, who cares if they die or whatever? So, great episode. Can't wait for the next one. 8 out of 10 for me, I guess. Fantastic. So if you watched it, did you like it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.